My parents forced me to let them organize my entire wedding, then during rehearsal dinner, began insulting the one thing I picked myself. I told them their comments were hurting me, so my dad laughed in my face and said, "You're too sensitive." That's when I saw their true colors. This was 4 months ago. Yesterday, my mother left 27 voicemails begging to meet and apologize. As a kid, my parents made it clear to me that every single thing I did needed to be approved by them first, no exceptions. The best example I can give is when I was 6 years old, trying to choose between a blue school bag with stars and a pink one with flowers. My hand hovered over the blue one because I liked the stars. I liked how it made me feel, like maybe I could be a star someday. But then my mom sighed loudly. She frowned at me, telling me to pick up the pink one because I was a girl. I wanted to protest, but my dad crouched down and gave me the low, serious voice he always used when I was misbehaving. He told me that when I made choices without their approval, it showed disrespect. That if I kept doing it, they'd have to stop being my mom and dad and would leave me. I remember my stomach twisting. I shook my head really fast and said I didn't want that, so I grabbed the pink backpack even though I didn't want it. On the way home, they kept praising me for listening to them. Fast forward to me as an adult. I work as an event planner. I organize huge weddings, corporate parties, you name it. I am really good at it. But when it came to planning my own wedding, I completely fell apart. At first, James, my fiancé, and I were excited. We toured this gorgeous venue with these cathedral ceilings and big windows that let in the sunlight. It was perfect. I loved it instantly. But the second my mom walked in, she wrinkled her nose and said it was too showy. I felt this automatic panic rise in my chest. Without even thinking, I told James maybe we should look at other places. He looked confused, but he rolled with it. From there, it just spiraled. Every detail, every tiny thing, I gave up to keep my parents happy. I picked the dress my mom liked instead of the one I had dreamed of. I changed the menu 3 times because my dad kept deciding he did not like certain dishes. We even moved the wedding date because apparently spring weddings were unlucky according to my mom. James tried to bring it up a few times. He asked if I was really okay with all these changes. I smiled and said I was happy to compromise. I convinced myself it was fine, but it wasn't fine. By the time the rehearsal dinner came, I was a shell of myself. I had lost weight and was barely sleeping, but I still thought if I just made my parents dinner, it would all be worth it. The restaurant we chose was my parents' favorite. The menu was their favorite. I even got my dad's college buddy to give a toast. I thought they'd love it, but instead, my mom pulled me aside halfway through and told me the centerpieces looked cheap. I didn't know what to say, and to add insult to injury, I overheard my dad loudly questioning our honeymoon destination in front of everyone. I felt my cheeks burning with humiliation. It felt like someone stuck a knife right between my ribs. I walked over, shaking, and tried to tell them how much their comments were hurting me, but they just said I was being sensitive and reminded me how much money they had spent on the wedding. My dad insulted me, saying the wedding was a reflection of our family and that I had turned it into a disaster. Something in me broke then, or maybe it healed. I do not even know. I just felt this strange calm come over me. I thought back to everything my parents did to me. Every time I had to ask them if I could be friends with this person. Every time I had to ask if I could order this at a restaurant. Every time they made me believe I was dumb and incapable of making my own decisions. And I realized one thing. My parents are insane. Flipping insane. And if I was my friend, I would tell me to stand up to them and not back down. So that's what I did. I looked my mom straight in the eye and told her I was done. They were no longer welcome at the wedding, and if they had a problem with it, they could talk to the wall about it. This was the first time I'd done that, and they stared at me in disbelief, like I was joking. They actually thought I was. But then they realized just how serious I was. My dad started to protest, and I just cut him off, my voice shaking but firm. I said this was not a negotiation. They weren't coming. I told them I would rather cancel the entire wedding than spend the happiest day of my life begging for their approval. Everyone at the dinner went silent. I walked straight to James and grabbed his hand. My hands were trembling, but he squeezed them while looking at me so proudly. I asked him if he would help me rebuild the wedding from scratch. He smiled and said yes without hesitating. I almost cried right there, but somehow I held it together. My mom actually went to lunge at me, but my best friend Taylor, who had been my maid of honor, immediately stepped between me and my parents like a damn bodyguard. James and I walked out, leaving my parents throwing a tantrum in the restaurant. But as happy as we were, there was one thing we didn't realize. My parents didn't have to be directly involved to ruin our wedding. The next morning, I woke up at James's apartment with a weird mix of emotions. Part of me felt like I was floating on air after finally standing up to my parents. The other part was having a full-blown panic attack. I kept checking my phone, half expecting to see a million missed calls from them. There were none. Just a text from Taylor asking if I was okay. James made us coffee while I sat at his kitchen counter trying to process what had happened. He didn't push me to talk, just slid a mug in front of me and kissed the top of my head. That's one of the things I love about him. He knows when to give me space. So, he finally said after I'd had half my coffee, "What do you want to do now?" I almost asked him what he thought we should do. The reflex to defer to someone else's judgment was so strong, but I caught myself. "I want to rebuild this wedding, our way." He smiled so big it made my heart hurt a little. "Then that's what we'll do." We spent the whole morning making a list of everything we needed to change. The venue was first. I called the barn we'd originally loved, but they were booked solid for the next 8 months. The coordinator was super nice though and recommended another place, an old greenhouse that had been converted into an event space. We made an appointment to see it that afternoon. The greenhouse was even better than the barn. It had these amazing glass walls and ceiling, with plants and flowers everywhere. It felt magical, like we'd be getting married in some secret garden. The best part? They'd had a cancellation and could fit us in just 6 months later than our original date. I didn't even hesitate. I signed the contract right there. "Are you sure?" James asked as we walked back to the car. "You don't need to think about it?" I shook my head. "I'm sure. It feels right." And it did. For the first time in my life, making a decision without consulting my parents felt exhilarating instead of terrifying. It was like discovering a new muscle I never knew I had, this ability to trust my own judgment completely. Over the next few weeks, we went into full replanning mode. I called the bakery and changed our wedding cake from my mom's preferred traditional fruit cake, Who even likes fruitcake? To a 3-tier chocolate cake with raspberry filling that James and I both loved. I canceled the stuffy string quartet my dad had insisted on and booked a jazz band that a colleague had recommended. I even called the florist and completely redesigned the arrangements, replacing my mom's chosen white roses with wildflowers in blues and purples that reminded me of the meadow where James had first told me he loved me. Each change felt like removing a brick from the wall I'd built around myself. With every decision I made on my own, I felt more like me, the real me, not the version my parents had created. But the biggest change was my dress. The one my mom had picked was this massive princess ball gown with so many crystals I could barely move in it. It wasn't me at all. So I made an emergency appointment at a small boutique Taylor recommended. "You don't have to do this if you're not ready," Taylor said as we pulled up to the shop. "We can wait." I shook my head. No more waiting, no more letting other people decide what I want. The consultant at the boutique was amazing. She listened to what I actually wanted. Something simple, elegant, with clean lines. The third dress I tried on was perfect. It was a sleek sheath dress with a low back and the tiniest bit of lace at the edges. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see my mom's daughter or my dad's little girl. I saw me, Emma, a woman about to marry the love of her life. I bought it on the spot. The consultant was shocked they wouldn't need to make any alterations. It fit like it was made for me. Maybe it was. "Your parents are going to flip when they see you in this," Taylor said as we left the shop. I stopped walking. "They're not going to see me in it." I meant what I said. "They're not coming to the wedding." Taylor looked skeptical. "Emma, I know you're mad, but they're your parents. You'll regret it if they're not there." I shook my head. "You don't understand. This isn't about one fight. It's about my entire life. I can't keep living for their approval." She didn't push it, but I could tell she thought I'd change my mind. Everyone did. James's parents called that night, concerned about the family rift. They suggested we all sit down together and work things out. James's mom kept saying things like, "Blood is thicker than water," and "You only get one set of parents." I thanked them for their concern but stood my ground. Even my boss got involved. My parents had apparently called her, claiming I was having some kind of breakdown. She pulled me into her office the next day, looking worried. "Emma, is everything okay? Your parents seemed very concerned about you." I explained the situation as calmly as I could. She nodded along, then leaned forward with this super serious expression. "Listen, I had controlling parents too. Not as bad as yours, but bad enough. Standing up to them was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was also the best thing. So whatever you need, time off, support, someone to run interference, I'm here." I nearly cried right there in her office. Having someone actually validate my feelings instead of telling me to make peace with my parents was, well, it was new. 5 days after the rehearsal dinner disaster, my phone rang with my mom's number. I'd been expecting it. I took a deep breath and answered. "Emma, this has gone on long enough," she said without even saying hello. "Your father and I are willing to forgive your outburst if you apologize and come to dinner tonight." I almost laughed. "I'm not apologizing, Mom. I meant what I said. Don't be ridiculous. Of course we're coming to your wedding. We're your parents." "No, you're not coming. I've already told the venue security to not let you in." There was a long pause. "You wouldn't dare." "I already did." She switched tactics. "What about the money we contributed? We paid for half of everything. I'll pay you back," I said, even though I had no idea how I'd manage it. James and I had decent jobs, but coming up with that kind of cash on short notice would be tough. "This isn't about the money," she snapped. "This is about respect. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" I took another deep breath. "Mom, I'm hanging up now. Please don't call again unless you're ready to apologize for how you've treated me my entire life." I ended the call before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but I felt strong. I'd done it. I'd stood my ground. The next day, things got worse. My dad's sister, Aunt Karen, called me. She's always been his mouthpiece when he wants to manipulate someone without getting his own hands dirty. "Emma, sweetie, your parents are devastated," she said in that fake sweet voice of hers. "Your father hasn't been able to eat or sleep. Is this really how you want to start your married life? With this dark cloud hanging over you?" I told her the same thing I told my mom, that I wasn't backing down. She sighed dramatically. "Well, I hope you realize what you're doing to this family. Your cousin Jennifer is thinking of not coming to the wedding out of solidarity with your parents." I hadn't even invited Jennifer. We hadn't spoken in years. I almost pointed this out but decided it wasn't worth it. "Anyone who doesn't want to come doesn't have to," I said instead. "This is about James and me, not family politics." After I hung up, I got a text from my younger brother, Tyler. We've never been super close. He's 5 years younger and was always the good kid who never questioned our parents. His text was brief. "Mom and Dad are on the warpath. Watch your back." I showed the text to James that night. He frowned. "What do you think that means?" I shrugged, trying to act like it didn't bother me. Probably just more guilt trips and flying monkeys. That's what I called the relatives and friends my parents would send to do their dirty work. But deep down, I was worried. My parents weren't the type to just accept defeat. They'd find a way to reassert control, to punish me for defying them. I just didn't know how yet. I found out the next morning. I got a call from our new venue. The manager sounded uncomfortable. "Ms. Wilson, I'm sorry to inform you that we've had to cancel your reservation." My stomach dropped. "What? Why?" "We signed a contract." "Yes. Well, we received some concerning information about your event. A Mr. Wilson, your father, I believe, informed us that your wedding is actually a cover for an illegal gathering. He provided some very convincing documentation." I was speechless. My father had actually lied to the venue to get them to cancel our wedding. The manager continued, sounding genuinely apologetic. "We've refunded your deposit in full. I'm sorry for any inconvenience." I hung up and immediately called my dad. He answered on the first ring, like he'd been waiting for my call. How could you? I demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. You lied to the venue? He had the audacity to sound calm. I don't know what you're talking about, Emma. The greenhouse venue. They just called and canceled our reservation because you told them our wedding was some kind of illegal event. Well, if you had consulted with us before making such an important decision, this wouldn't have happened. The greenhouse was a poor choice anyway. Too humid for older guests. I was shaking with rage. You had no right to do that. I had every right. I'm your father. Now, if you're ready to be reasonable, your mother and I have some availability this weekend to discuss proper wedding venues. I hung up on him. Then I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall and the screen cracked. Perfect. Just perfect. James found me sitting on the floor, surrounded by wedding planning notebooks and my broken phone. I told him what happened. He sat down next to me and put his arm around my shoulders. We'll find another venue, he said. Or we can postpone. Or hell, we can go to the courthouse tomorrow if you want. I don't care where or when we get married, Emma. I just want to marry you. I leaned into him, grateful for his steadiness. I want a real wedding. Our wedding. Not at a courthouse. Not with my parents controlling everything. Ours. He nodded. Then that's what we'll do. We spent the rest of the day calling every venue in a 50-mile radius. Most were booked solid for the next 8 to 12 months. Wedding season was in full swing. A few had openings, but not until the following year. I was starting to lose hope when Taylor called. My cousin Morgan owns a small art gallery downtown, she said. It's not traditional, but it's beautiful. Lots of open space, great lighting, and she owes me a favor. Want me to ask if you can use it? I almost cried with relief. Yes, please. That would be amazing. The gallery was perfect. It had high ceilings, white walls covered in local artwork, and these gorgeous hardwood floors. Taylor's cousin Morgan was incredibly kind. She offered to let us use the space for free as a wedding gift. Just promise to take lots of pictures, she said. The publicity will be great for the gallery. I hugged her so hard I probably bruised her ribs. We set the date for 6 months out, 4 months later than our original wedding date. It wasn't ideal, but it was doable. We'd have to scramble to notify guests of the change, but most of them were already aware of the drama with my parents and were supportive. With the venue secured, I felt like I could breathe again. James and I spent the evening updating our wedding website with the new information and sending out mass emails to our guest list. I was just starting to feel like we might pull this off when my phone rang again. It was the bakery. Ms. Wilson, we're calling about your wedding cake order. We've had a request to cancel it from a Mr. Wilson who says he's the one paying for it. My heart sank. Of course. My dad had paid the deposit on the cake. I explained the situation to the baker, who was sympathetic but firm. I understand, but without the original payment information, we can't proceed with the order. You'd need to place a new order and pay a rush fee since we're within the 30-day window. I agreed to come in the next day to sort it out. After I hung up, I made a list of all the vendors my parents might have contacted. The florist, the photographer, the DJ, the rental company for chairs and tables, the caterer. By the time I finished the list, it was midnight, and I felt sick to my stomach. James found me at the kitchen table staring at my list. We'll fix this, he promised, one vendor at a time. The next 2 months were a blur of damage control. My parents had indeed contacted nearly every vendor, either canceling outright or making changes to our orders. The florist had been told to deliver the arrangements to my parents' house instead of the venue. The photographer had been told the wedding was postponed indefinitely. The DJ had been given a completely different playlist full of songs I hated. Each time I had to explain the situation, provide new payment information, and sometimes pay additional fees for last-minute changes. Our wedding budget was stretching thinner by the day. I dipped into my savings, maxed out a credit card, and even considered selling my car. James contributed everything he could, but he was still paying off student loans. Through it all, the calls and texts from my parents' allies continued. Aunts, uncles, family friends, all telling me I was making a terrible mistake, that I was breaking my parents' hearts, that I would regret this forever. I stopped answering calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I blocked relatives on social media. I felt like I was under siege. 3 months before the wedding, I got a call from James's mom. She sounded upset. Emma, did you know your parents are telling people the wedding is canceled? They called us this morning to say you and James had broken up. I nearly dropped the phone. What? That's insane. We're fine. The wedding is still on. That's what I thought. Your mother sounded so convincing, though. She said James had cheated on you and you were too embarrassed to tell anyone. My blood ran cold. They were trying to sabotage not just my wedding, but my relationship. I thanked James's mom for letting me know and immediately called James, who was at work. My parents are telling people we broke up, I said as soon as he answered. They told your parents you cheated on me. There was a long pause. That explains the weird text I got from my brother asking if I was okay. Emma, this is getting out of hand. I know. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. Hey, stop that. None of this is your fault. Your parents are the ones behaving like lunatics. He was right, but I still felt responsible. If I hadn't stood up to them, none of this would be happening. But then again, if I hadn't stood up to them, I'd be walking down the aisle in a dress I hated, in a venue I didn't choose, marrying James with my parents' conditional approval hanging over my head. That night, James and I sat down and made a plan. We created a new email address that only our closest friends and family had access to. We used it to send out the real details of our wedding. We contacted each guest personally to confirm they had the correct information. We even created a password for vendors to use. Anyone making changes to our orders would need to provide it. It was exhausting, but it was working. Slowly, we reclaimed control of our wedding. The gallery was confirmed. The new cake was ordered. The florist had the right delivery address. The photographer was back on board. We even found a new caterer who could work with our reduced budget. 2 months before the wedding, I was starting to feel cautiously optimistic. Maybe we'd actually pull this off. Maybe my parents had finally given up. I should have known better. I was at work, finalizing details for another client's event, when my boss called me into her office. She looked uncomfortable. Emma, I just got a very disturbing call from your father. He claims you've been using company resources for your personal wedding planning. He mentioned something about misappropriation of funds and threatened to contact our board of directors. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. That's completely false. I've never used company money money for my wedding. I've barely even used the office printer for personal stuff. My boss held up a hand. I know. Your work has always been impeccable. I'm not accusing you of anything. I just wanted you to know what's happening. I nodded, fighting back tears. Thank you for telling me. Take the rest of the day off, she said gently, and maybe the rest of the week. Consider it an early wedding gift. I thanked her and left, but I didn't go home. I drove straight to my parents' house. I needed to confront them face to face. This had gone beyond wedding sabotage. They were now threatening my career, my livelihood, my professional reputation that I had worked so hard to build over the years. My mom answered the door, looking surprised to see me. Emma, I knew you'd come to your senses eventually. I pushed past her into the house. Where's Dad? I need to talk to both of you. My dad emerged from his study, a smug look on his face. Ready to apologize? Apologize? Are you kidding me? You called my boss and accused me of embezzlement. You could have gotten me fired. He shrugged. I was simply expressing my concerns as a parent. No, you were trying to ruin my life because I wouldn't let you control my wedding. What is wrong with you? Both of you? This isn't normal parent behavior. My mom crossed her arms. We've only ever wanted what's best for you, Emma. Everything we've done has been out of love. I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. Love? This isn't love. This is control. This is abuse. They both looked shocked at the word. My dad's face turned red. How dare you? After everything we've done for you. Yes, let's talk about what you've done for me. You've made me doubt every decision I've ever made. You've made me afraid to have my own opinions. You've threatened to abandon me if I didn't do exactly what you wanted. And now you're actively trying to destroy my wedding and my career because I finally stood up for myself. My mom started crying, those fake tears she always used to manipulate me. You're breaking my heart, Emma. I don't even recognize you anymore. Good, I said firmly, because the Emma you recognize was just a puppet you created. I'm done letting you pull my strings. I turned to leave, but my dad grabbed my arm. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. Ever. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. Let go of me. He tightened his grip. Not until you show some respect. Let go. Office me. I enunciated each word clearly. When he didn't release me, I used my free hand to pry his fingers off my arm. I'm not a child anymore. You can't threaten me. You can't control me. And you can't stop me from marrying James and living my life on my terms. I walked out, slamming the door behind me. My whole body was shaking, but I felt stronger than I ever had before. In the car, I called James and told him what happened. Are you okay? He asked, his voice full of concern. Do you want me to come get you? No, I'm okay. Actually, I'm better than okay. I think I finally said everything I needed to say to them. I'm proud of you, Em. So damn proud. I drove home feeling lighter somehow, despite everything that had happened. I'd finally named the problem out loud. Abuse. That's what it was. Not strict parenting, not overprotectiveness. Abuse. Emotional and psychological abuse that had shaped my entire life. The next few weeks passed in a blur of final wedding preparations. I kept expecting more sabotage from my parents, but nothing happened. No more canceled vendors. No more calls to my workplace. No more relatives showing up to guilt me. It was almost more unnerving than the active sabotage had been. 3 weeks before the wedding, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting. Inside was a check for the exact amount they had contributed to the original wedding, along with a short note. We release you from any obligation to us. Do not contact us again. I stared at the check for a long time. It was both a peace offering and a final severing of ties. They were giving me what I wanted, financial independence from them, but at the cost of our relationship. It should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt relieved. I deposited the check and used it to pay off the credit card I'd maxed out fixing their sabotage. It felt right somehow, using their money to undo their damage. The day before our wedding, James and I did a final walkthrough of the gallery with Taylor and Morgan. The space looked amazing. Local artists had donated additional pieces specifically for our event. Friends had helped us set up simple but elegant decorations. Twinkle lights, gauzy fabric draped from the ceiling, potted plants instead of expensive cut flowers. It wasn't the wedding I had originally envisioned. It was better. It was ours. Every detail reflected our tastes, our preferences, our love story. No parental approval required. That night, at our new rehearsal dinner, a casual pizza party at our apartment with the wedding party, Taylor pulled me aside. Your parents called me, she said quietly. They wanted to know if I could help them get into the wedding. They said they've changed their minds and want to be there. I felt a momentary pang of something, not quite regret, not quite longing, just acknowledgement of what might have been in a different world with different parents. What did you tell them? I asked, twisting my engagement ring nervously around my finger. I told them it wasn't my decision to make. It's your wedding, Emma. Your choice. I nodded, thinking it over. They're not coming. Not after everything they've done. Maybe someday we can rebuild some kind of relationship, but not tomorrow. Tomorrow is for James and me. Taylor hugged me tight. That's my girl. The morning of my wedding dawned bright and clear. I woke up feeling strangely calm. No last-minute panic. No second thoughts. Just certainty that I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what I wanted to do. James had stayed at his best friend's place the night before, following the tradition of not seeing each other before the ceremony. Taylor came over early to help me get ready. As she did my hair, I caught her watching me in the mirror. What? I asked. Nothing. You just look different, happier, more you. I smiled. I feel more me. We were just finishing up when there was a knock at the door. Taylor went to answer it while I put the finishing touches on my makeup. I heard voices in the hallway. Then Taylor came back looking worried. Emma, your parents are here. My heart dropped to my stomach. I sat frozen at my vanity, mascara wand still in my hand. What do they want? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. They said they want to talk to you. Just talk, Taylor replied, looking as uncomfortable as I felt. I told them you're getting ready and it's not a good time, but they're insisting. I put down the mascara and took a deep breath. Part of me wanted to tell Taylor to send them away. After everything they'd done, They had no right to show up on my wedding day. But another part of me was curious. What could they possibly have to say now? I'll talk to them, I decided, but not alone. Stay with me? Taylor nodded and squeezed my shoulder. Of course. Want me to bring them in here? No, I said firmly. The living room. I don't want them in my personal space. I checked my reflection one last time. My hair was done, my makeup nearly complete. I was wearing a silk robe over my underwear, my dress hanging nearby. I wasn't fully ready, but I looked put together enough to face them. I walked into my living room with Taylor right behind me. My parents were standing awkwardly by the couch, looking out of place. My mom was holding a small gift bag. My dad had his hands in his pockets, looking around my apartment like he was inspecting it for flaws. Emma, my mom said, stepping forward. You look beautiful. I crossed my arms. What are you doing here? My dad cleared his throat. We wanted to see you before the wedding. To apologize. I raised an eyebrow, not buying it for a second. Apologize for what specifically? For controlling my entire life? For trying to ruin my wedding? For calling my boss and accusing me of embezzlement? My mom flinched. We went too far. We see that now. We just wanted your wedding to be perfect, my dad added. We got carried away. I almost laughed. Carried away? You tried to destroy my relationship and my career because I wouldn't let you control my wedding. That's not getting carried away. That's being abusive. They exchanged a look, and I could tell they weren't expecting me to be so direct. My mom held out the gift bag. We brought you something. A peace offering. I didn't take it. I don't want gifts. I want you to respect my boundaries. Please, she insisted. It's important. Reluctantly, I took the bag. Inside was a small blue backpack keychain with stars on it. I stared at it, confused. It's to replace the one you wanted as a child, my mom explained, her voice soft. The blue one with stars that we made you give up for the pink one with flowers. I felt a lump form in my throat. They remembered that? After all these years? We've been doing a lot of thinking, my dad said, and talking to a therapist. He said the word like it tasted strange in his mouth. We realize now that we've been too controlling. We were so afraid of you making mistakes that we never let you make choices. I turned the keychain over in my hand, not sure what to feel. Part of me was touched that they remembered something that had meant so much to me as a child. Another part was suspicious of this sudden change of heart. Why now? I asked. After everything you've done to sabotage my wedding, why show up today with apologies and gifts? My mom looked down. We got a call from Aunt Linda yesterday. She said she wasn't coming to the wedding because we weren't welcome. She told us we were fools for treating you this way, that we were going to lose you forever if we didn't change. Aunt Linda was my mom's older sister. She'd always been the black sheep of the family, the one who lived life on her own terms. I'd always liked her but rarely saw her because my parents disapproved of her lifestyle choices, which basically meant she was divorced and had traveled the world instead of settling down in our small town. Aunt Linda said that? I asked, surprised. My dad nodded. She said some other things too, things we needed to hear. We don't expect you to forgive us right away, my mom added, or to let us come to the wedding. We just wanted you to know that we're trying to understand, and we're sorry. I stood there, clutching the little blue backpack keychain, feeling torn. On one hand, this seemed like the apology I'd been waiting for my entire life. On the other hand, it was awfully convenient timing. I appreciate the gesture, I said finally, but I need time. You can't undo decades of control with one apology and a keychain. They nodded, looking disappointed but not surprised. We understand, my dad said. We'll go. We just wanted to wish you happiness today. They turned to leave, and I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness watching them go. At the door, my mom paused and looked back. Your dress, she said, nodding toward where it hung in the hallway. It's perfect. Much better than the one I picked. It was such a small thing, but it hit me hard. An acknowledgement that my choice was valid, better even than hers. I felt tears prick at my eyes. Thank you, I managed to say. After they left, I sat on the couch, still holding the keychain. Taylor sat next to me, silent for a moment. You okay? She finally asked. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I think so. That was unexpected. What are you thinking? I turned the keychain over in my hand. I'm thinking that people can surprise you, even after 30 years. Do you want them at the wedding? Taylor asked carefully. I thought about it for a long moment. No, I decided. Today is about James and me, about the life we're building together. I'm not ready to have them be part of that yet. Taylor squeezed my hand. That's fair. Now come on, let's finish getting you ready. You've got a man to marry. The rest of the morning flew by. I finished my makeup, slipped into my dress, and put on the simple pearl earrings James had given me for my birthday. I tucked the blue backpack keychain into my small bridal purse, not because I'd forgiven my parents, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. When it was time to leave for the gallery, I felt a strange calm settle over me. No jitters, no second thoughts, just certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be, making exactly the right choice. The gallery looked even more beautiful than I remembered. Morgan had added extra lighting that made the whole space glow. The artwork on the walls seemed to come alive in the soft light. Our friends had arranged chairs in neat rows facing a simple arch decorated with greenery and white flowers. I waited in a small back room while guests arrived. Through the door, I could hear the murmur of voices, occasional laughter. Taylor peeked out periodically to give me updates. Everyone's here, she reported. The place is packed. My parents? I couldn't help asking. She shook her head. No sign of them. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and something else I couldn't quite name. Good. When it was time, Taylor handed me my bouquet, a simple arrangement of wildflowers that matched the ones decorating the arch. The music started. Not the traditional wedding march my mother had insisted on, but a beautiful acoustic version of the song that had been playing when James and I first met. I took a deep breath and stepped into the main gallery. Everyone stood, turning to look at me. I saw James's parents, beaming with pride. I saw my coworkers, my friends from college, James's buddies from his basketball league. I saw Aunt Linda, who gave me a wink and a thumbs up. And at the end of the aisle stood James. He was wearing a dark blue suit instead of the traditional black tux my dad had tried to force on him. His eyes lit up when he saw me, and he broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. In that moment, everything else faded away. All the drama with my parents, all the wedding planning stress, all the years of self-doubt, none of it mattered anymore. I walked toward him, not even noticing if I was keeping time with the music. All I could see was James, waiting for me with that look on his face like I was the most amazing thing he'd ever seen. When I reached him, he took my hands in his. "You look incredible," he whispered. "So do you," I whispered back. The officiant, James's college roommate who had gotten ordained online just for us, welcomed everyone and began the ceremony. We had written our own vows, simple promises to support each other, to communicate honestly, to build a life together based on mutual respect and love. When James said, "I promise to always value your choices and support your decisions, even when they're different from what I would choose," I nearly lost it. He squeezed my hands, and I knew he was thinking about everything we'd been through to get here. After we exchanged rings and were pronounced husband and wife, James pulled me into a kiss that made our guests cheer and whistle. I laughed against his lips, feeling lighter than I had in years. The reception was perfect in its imperfection. The DJ played the wrong song for our first dance, but we rolled with it. The cake leaned slightly to one side, but it tasted amazing. One of James's nephews spilled punch on the gift table, but everyone just laughed and helped clean it up. Through it all, I kept waiting for something to go wrong. Really wrong. For my parents to show up and make a scene. For another vendor to cancel at the last minute. For some disaster to strike that would ruin everything. But nothing did. The night unfolded exactly as it should. With dancing and toasts and so much laughter, my cheeks hurt from smiling. As I looked around at our friends and family celebrating with us, I realized something important. This was what a wedding should be. Not a perfect production designed to impress others, but a joyful celebration of love surrounded by people who genuinely cared about us. Around midnight, as the party was winding down, Taylor pulled me aside. "Someone left this for you," she said, handing me an envelope. I opened it to find a card with a simple message. "We're proud of you. Love, Mom and Dad." Inside was a check for a ridiculous amount of money, enough to pay for our honeymoon and then some. I showed it to James. "What do you think?" He studied the card. "It's your call, Em. What do you want to do?" I thought about it for a moment. I think I want to cash the check and use it for our honeymoon. Not because I need their money, but because accepting it feels like accepting that they're trying to change. James nodded. "I support whatever you decide." I tucked the card into my purse, next to the little blue backpack keychain. Maybe someday I'd be ready to have a real relationship with my parents, one based on mutual respect rather than control and fear. Maybe they'd actually follow through on their promise to change, maybe not. But either way, I was okay. We left the reception in a shower of eco-friendly confetti, my choice, not my mother's. James's car was decorated with streamers and "Just Married" written on the back window. As we drove away, I looked back at our friends waving goodbye and felt a surge of gratitude. "Happy?" James asked, reaching for my hand. "Incredibly," I said, and meant it. We spent our wedding night in a boutique hotel downtown, not the fancy five-star place my parents had originally booked, but a quirky, artistic spot that suited us perfectly. In the morning, we'd leave for our honeymoon, 2 weeks in Japan, exploring Tokyo and Kyoto at our own pace, making decisions together as we went along. As I lay in bed that night, James sleeping peacefully beside me, I thought about the long journey that had brought me here, from that little girl afraid to choose a blue backpack, to a woman who had planned her own wedding her way. It hadn't been easy, and the road had been full of unexpected turns, but I'd made it. For the first time in my life, I was making my own choices without fear. I was living on my own terms, and it felt amazing. I didn't know what the future held for James and me, or for my relationship with my parents. But I did know one thing for certain. Whatever choices I made from now on would be mine. Not my parents. Not anyone else's. Mine. And that was the greatest wedding gift of all.